Right, officially. Good afternoon, everybody. Nice to see you all. Today, we're going to use this particular, well, we've got two pictures to look at that I offered to you. One was a street going up a hill and off to eternity, and the other was this little street down a back alley with some arches and rather pretty stuff around. I'm trying to think where we were. This is Nice. This is near Nice, is where these are from. And I'm going to talk to you about a different way of sketching. The last 2 weeks, we have been following half a dozen exercises to hone our observation skills. And this time, I'm taking you through a different set, a different exercise. It's not a set of exercises. In this case, it's a single exercise, but it demands a fair amount of concentration about what you're doing. And when you have something as complicated as this picture, the idea of looking at it and then drawing what you thought you saw and then going through all that club dance could be fairly horrific. I think taking a line for a walk would work quite nicely, but I think it's also important to show you the other sketching tip that I got when we were on our sketching holiday in Suffolk. And in this case, what you have to do is to draw in the verticals. Ignore everything else. Ignore anything that isn't vertical. So all you're doing is putting in the verticals. Now, if we look at this picture, there's one here. There's one here. And then we have these here. And this window here. I'm ignoring the bottom. We have this line here. And another one there. And then this one here, which is the edge of the building that the arch is attached to. The arch isn't vertical, so we'll leave that alone for the moment. That one is vertical. That one is vertical and actually goes the whole way down because it's part of that door. And we've got two vertical lines there. There's a little one up here. Right, so you've got your verticals. If we look at this picture, there are a series of verticals. There's these over here. There's one, there's a little one there. There are some across this window here. There's one there, there's one there, there's one there, and here, and there, and there, and there, right at the edge. And then we come down this one. There's this one with a bit of bump on it because it's got a person on it. There's a little one there, a bigger one there, bigger one there, and a bigger one there. Now, in no case have I mentioned any of the diagonals or any of the horizontals, if there are any. All I'm looking at is the vertical lines. So, if I look at this one and I want to draw it in, I'll use a pencil to show you what I mean. No, not that bit. For heaven's sake, get this piece of paper. Right, this will be enough to show you what I'm getting on with. So, assuming I'm going to paint it on the page more or less the same size as this picture, this first line here in the dark corner goes from the top of the page practically to the bottom. Not quite to the bottom, but practically to the bottom. And the same with the one next to it. It goes all the way down, practically to the bottom. So if I put in those two lines, the only thing I've got to think about is my picture going to be that size. So I draw this line. I've got to think how far in it comes before I start to draw it from the edge. So I'm going to draw it there. I'm making it very strong so that I hope you can see it. And it comes down nearly to the bottom. And then there is a gap here with that line there next to it. How big is that gap? It's about the same size as that gap, which brings it to about here. So I draw this one down. Whoops, try and keep it straight, Steve. There we are. So it's there. Now, normally I wouldn't draw as strongly as that. I'm drawing as strongly as that so that the people online can see what I'm doing. The next line, which is a vertical, is the one at the edge of this window here. It is a certain distance from the last line, not as wide a gap as between the previous two, nor does it start at the top of the page. It starts about just above halfway. I'm not worrying about the curve. I'm just thinking about that straight line and how far down it comes. Again, practically to the bottom. So I'm thinking of a line just above halfway, about there, not as wide as that gap, about there, and I'm drawing that line in. And it comes down not quite to the same depth as the one before it, that one, right? The next line that's vertical is the one that's in the middle of the shutters. So it starts above the last line, but finishes before the last line. So, and it's a certain gap away. It's less than the gap from the previous two. So I've got to think in terms of something more that size. Whoops, keep it straight. It is quite difficult when I'm trying to draw slowly to keep it straight. And it comes down not as far. If you kept it straight, it would be better. There we are. And then we look at the far one, and that starts more or less the same place as the little line there, but it stops shorter. So we start about here and we come down. And it stops a little bit above, about there, right? Then I go across to this one. Now, this one is further up from the previous one. That gap is about the same as the gap of the shutters, but it's lower than the shutters. In terms of the picture, it's about halfway. So it's about there, I think. And it stops well short. It's about there. Whoops, gosh, talk about draw a straight line. And then, of course, I can do the one next to it, which again is about that and stops a little shorter. And then we have this straight line down here that's got a, I was going to say a hose pipe, a drain pipe attached to it. I just want to get it in. It goes from the top of the picture and it stops. If I look at it, it stops about on the level with that one there. And it's quite a wide gap. So we'll go from the top of the picture all the way down. Whoops. Something sadly wrong with me today. Goes to about there, right? But then I can put the next one in, the next one in, the next one. So what you've got, all you're thinking about is how, where the line starts, where it finishes, and how far away it was from the last one. You're not thinking, oh gosh, this is a window and it's got a curve. How am I going to do that? You know? So that when you come to put in your angles, they're there for you. You haven't had to think about what angle is that line where the building meets the bottom. It's there for you. The same with this curve here. It comes like that. You can see the curve. This has got a little curve on it, and you've got that there. So as soon as you've got your verticals in the right place, the right length, the right distance from each other, you've got your picture quite simply provided for you. It's a bit more complicated doing buildings. You can do the same thing with this picture by starting with this one here. Oops, this one here, and then moving to that one, and so on as you go along. They're not quite so closely related to each other, but it is possible to put in the verticals. Talk to yourself if you like. This is a door. This is the near side of the door. This is the far side of the door. This is the corner of the awning. This is, where are we? This is part of the window frame and another part of the window frame. And if you do that, you keep track of where you are on the picture. This works an absolute treat if you're doing a lot of maths in an estuary and you want to produce the thing. You'd be surprised how clear the picture is if you draw your heap of maths. And all you got to do is put a boat on the bottom. And you've got your boats in perspective without any bother wondering what it looks like, what it's, you know. So drawing straight lines like this is a good way of sorting out the picture when you're trying to draw it. So what I want you to do is to take the picture you've decided you want to paint and lightly, not as heavily as I've done, lightly on that piece of paper, draw in your verticals. And that is the sketching exercise we're doing today. Don't worry about the horizontals or the diagonals, just put in the verticals, all the verticals on your picture. Right? Proceed.